Hello everyone, welcome to a new tutorial. Today's project is a simple, budget-friendly granny square baby blanket. To make this blanket I used 3 skeins of soft classic acrylic from Loops and Threads, and I work with 2 hooks. Hook size H 5mm to work the granny squares, and then hook size E 3.5mm for the border. This is a small size blanket. It only measures 24 by 24 inches, but of course it can be made bigger, so simply crochet more granny squares. Many of my viewers might find this project too easy, too simple, but I still greatly recommend that you watch this tutorial, because as I work on this blanket, I will share lots of useful crochet tips that will be helpful to many crocheters regardless of your experience and regardless of what crochet project you work on. My favorite thing about this blanket is the ruffled edge. It really gives an illusion of the blanket being slightly bigger than it really is, and it gives the blanket a finished look. A flat border kind of looks like the blanket is too small and sort of unfinished. The written pattern will be available in my Etsy and Ravelry shops, and I want to say a huge thank you to those of you who purchased my patterns. Unfortunately, the views on my channel went significantly down, and with it went the revenue from the ads. But because so many of you purchased my patterns, that really keeps me afloat, and that really keeps my channel and my crochet work going. So thank you so much. And before I start the tutorial, I actually want to share the story of this crochet piece, this blanket, because I absolutely love it when I make a crochet project. And there is a meaning behind it, there is a story to it. Recently, I've been taking crochet commissions to supplement my income, and a lady contacted me asking me if I could make a baby blanket for her granddaughter. And actually, she didn't just ask to make it, she asked me if I could replicate a baby blanket that her granddaughter had when she was a baby. But now this little girl is about 6 years old and she still loves that blanket, but unfortunately it's been through lots of washings and everything, and it's not in such great shape. So she wanted to commission me to make another one exactly the same. And I said, sure, no problem, I can totally do it. And then she said, actually, can you make me 2 of them, identical blankets, so that the girl can have one at her house, and then when she comes to visit her grandma, she can have another one at the grandma's house. And I was really touched. I thought it was very special and precious. And I said, sure, no problem, I'm gonna make you 2 of these blankets. I really hope my tutorial will be helpful to you, and maybe there is someone special in your life for who you can make this blanket. I start with 6 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I join them into a ring with a slip stitch. The first tip over here is to weave in this yarn tail through the chains of the ring, and that way this yarn tail will be securely hidden inside the square, and I won't need to worry about it later on. So not only it's gonna be covered with the stitches, but because it's weaved in, it will be really secure in there. Now I will be crocheting into the ring. And the next tip is to start with a beginning double crochet instead of 3 chains. And I have a very detailed video on how to make a beginning double crochet. I think every crocheter needs to learn to make it, because it does make a huge difference in how your finished item will look. So here I have the first double crochet, and now into the ring I make 3 more double crochets. 1, 2, 3. So I have 4 double crochets so far. Next, 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and into the ring again I make 4 double crochets. One, this little tail is getting in the way right now, but I'm not gonna worry about it. I'll just cut it off later on, and the rest of it will be securely hidden in the middle of the square. So that's 1 double crochet, 2, 3, 4. 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and into the ring 4 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and into the ring 4 more double crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and I join with a slip stitch to the first double crochet. So the first round of the square is now finished. I'm going to cut off this yarn tail, and now I don't need to worry about it anymore. It's already secured inside the square. And I start the next row with a beginning double crochet. Next, 2 chains, 1, 2, and I skip the next 2 double crochets, so 1, 2, and into the next one, or the last one of this group of double crochets, I work a double crochet. And my next step here is to work your double crochet not under the 2 loops on the top, but inserting the hook directly into double crochet. And I do have a video about it. I will post the link in the description box below if you would like to learn more about making double crochets this way. But it does make a huge difference when you insert the hook directly into the stitch and not only under the top 2 loops. Now into the next chain 3 space, this is the corner, I work 2 double crochets, 1, 2, then 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and 2 more double crochets, 1, 2. So this is a corner of the square. Into the next double crochet, I work a double crochet, inserting the hook directly into the stitch. Then 2 chains, 1, 2, I skip the next 2 double crochets, 1, 2, and into the next one I work a double crochet. And the corner I work as before, 2 double crochets, then 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and 2 more double crochets, 1, 2. Into the next double crochet, a double crochet, then 2 chains, 1, 2, skip the next 2 double crochets, and into the next one a double crochet. And I continue the same way. Into the corner space I work 2 double crochets, then 3 chains, and 2 more double crochets, 1, 2. Into the next double crochet, a double crochet, 2 chains, 1, 2, skip the next 2 double crochets, and into the next one a double crochet. And now I only need to finish this last corner, so I work 2 double crochets, 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and 2 more double crochets, 1, 2, and I join the round with a slip stitch in the first double crochet. So now I have 2 rounds finished. I start the next round with a beginning double crochet, then 2 chains, 1, 2, and now I will make a double crochet into each one of these 3 double crochets, and I insert the hook directly into the stitches. So the stitches are neatly aligned, one on top of the other. And into the corner space I work 2 double crochets, 1, 2, then 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and then 2 double crochets, 1, 2. And over here again I work a double crochet into each one of these 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3. Next 2 chains, 1, 2, into each one of these 3 double crochets I work a double crochet, 1, 2, 3, and into the corner space again 2 double crochets, 1, 2, then 3 chains and 2 double crochets, 1, 2, and over here again a double crochet into each double crochet. And that's how I'm going to continue crocheting this round. And at the end of the round I join with a slip stitch to the first double crochet. So now I have 3 rounds finished and only 1 more to go. So I start as before with a beginning double crochet, then 2 chains, and now into each one of these 5 double crochets I will work a double crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and into the corner space the same way as before, 2 double crochets, then 3 chains and 2 more double crochets, 1, 2, and over here again a double crochet into each one of these 5 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now over the next 2 chains here again I work 2 chains, and then the pattern repeats. Into each double crochet I will work a double crochet. I will make the same corner as before, 2 double crochets, 3 chains, 2 double crochets, and then a double crochet into each one of these 5 double crochets, and I will crochet that way all the way around. And here I finished the entire round. I join with a slip stitch to the first double crochet, and this is it. There are only 4 rounds in this square, and my next tip is on fastening off, and here is how I usually do it. I make 1, 2 chains, then I cut off the yarn tail, I pull it through, and over here I'm going to pull really tight to create a small knot, like that. And the granny square is now finished. And for my blanket I need to crochet 16 of such squares. So that's 1,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16.
And before I start stitching the squares together, I need to hide these yarn tails, and I'm going to use a tapestry needle. And usually when I'm done and I fasten off, I would hide or weave in this yarn tail along the edge over here. However, because I will be stitching these squares together, there's gonna be a seam over there, and I want to avoid extra bulkiness there, and for that reason, instead of weaving in along the edge over here, I'm going to use a tapestry needle and weave in this direction towards the center of the square, so that yarn tail gets hidden and secured in there. And now I make sure that it's not tightened. I can now cut off this yarn tail and not worry about it. And it really depends on the yarn that you're working with. This yarn has a somewhat rough texture to it. It's almost scratchy, but I'm pretty sure it will soften after the blanket is washed. So when I weave in the yarn tail, I'm not worried about it coming undone. But when you are working with yarns that have that smooth silky texture, those tails are more likely to come undone. And when I make a project with the yarn like that, I also like to use a regular sewing needle and secure the yarn in the yarn tail with a few stitches using a matching color sewing thread. But I don't need to do it with this project because, like I said, the texture of this yarn is such that it is not likely for that yarn tail to come undone, and I did hide it in pretty far into the center of the square, so I think it will be just fine. So I'm gonna go ahead and do it with every one of these squares, and then I'll start stitching them together. The next tip, or the next mistake that I often see crocheters make, especially beginners, is not paying attention to where the right and wrong side of the crochet piece is. And a crochet granny square, when it's crocheted in the round, does have a right and wrong side. Double crochets do look differently on the right side and on the wrong side. So when we are stitching granny squares together, we need to make sure that the squares are gonna be facing in the same direction. The right and the wrong sides will be in the same direction. So in order to stitch together these two granny squares, this is the right side, this is the wrong side, and here is the right side, wrong side. I'm going to fold them together with the right sides facing each other like this, and then I will start stitching them. I'm going to use a tapestry needle and the same yarn, and I will make the whip stitch for stitching the granny squares together. I'm going to start at the corner over here where I have 3 chains. So I insert the needle through the middle one or the second one on this granny square and on this granny square, and I pass the yarn through, and I'm gonna leave a yarn tail about, I don't know, 5 inches, and I'm going to tie a knot over here, and later on I will weave in this yarn tail over here so that it's secured and hidden inside. Now I'm going to start stitching. I will be using the whip stitch, and I will be grabbing only the inner loops of the squares. So this is the square that is closer to me, the front one. I will be passing the hook through the back loop of it. But on this square, on the second square that is farther away from me, I will be passing the needle through the front loop. So over here it's the back loop, but over here it's the front loop. And I pass the needle through and pull the yarn. And again, on this square it's the back loop, but on the other one it's the front loop. And that's how I'm going to stitch the granny squares together, grabbing the 2 loops, passing the needle through the 2 loops, and I refer to them as the inner loops because they are right here inside next to each other. And the amount of stitches on each granny square is the same, so the stitches should align perfectly, and I'm gonna stitch them all together like this. So now I got to the point where I don't have double crochets, but I have chains, and I do the same thing. Over here, I pass the needle through the back loop, but over here it's the front loop. And again, over here, the same thing. And then again over here I have double crochets, and I continue stitching as I did before. And now I am at the next corner, and here again I pass the needle through the chains, and this is where I stop at the middle chain. So let's take a look, and this is what it looks like on the right side, and this is what it looks like on the wrong side. So all the stitches here are aligned, and the chain spaces, and I have a neat seam, and this is how I'm going to stitch all the granny squares together. Here I want to show you how I stitched over here. So these are still not connected, and what I'm gonna do next is make stitches over here. What I'm trying to do is avoid having too many knots in between the squares, so that I only do one long seam over here, the next one is gonna be over there, and then once all the done, I'm gonna go this way, so it's gonna be long seams this way. Also pay attention to the direction of the seam, like you can see that it's tilted this way. So I'm gonna do the next one the same thing. It's gonna be tilted in the same direction too. You don't want to have some squares stitched together with the tilt in one way and then the other way. So you want to keep everything consistent. I stitched together all the squares, and this is a small blanket. This is gonna be a 2 by 2 feet blanket. Now I'm going to attach the yarn and start making border. For the border, I will use a smaller size hook. It's size E, 3.5 millimeters. So I'm attaching the yarn into the corner of the granny square, and I'm going to work each corner the same as I worked on the granny square. So first I make 3 chains, which are gonna count as the first double crochet, and now into the same corner space I work 1 more double crochet, then 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and then into the corner 2 double crochets, 1, 2. The loose end over here I'm gonna weave in right away, and then I'm gonna crochet over it so it will be secured under the stitches and I don't need to worry about it later on. And now I continue crocheting, so I'm going to make a round of double crochets. So I simply make a double crochet into each double crochet. And later on I will cut off this small yarn tail. Over here I have 2 chains, so I make a double crochet into each one of them. 1 and 2. And then I continue crocheting, making a double crochet into each double crochet. And over here is where 2 granny squares were stitched together. First I'm gonna weave in this yarn tail so that it will be secured under the stitches and I don't need to worry about it later on. And as I come across each new yarn tail, I will weave it in the same way before I continue crocheting. And now into the next chain 1, so directly into the chain I make a double crochet, and at the seam over here I'm going to make 2 double crochets, 1 over here, 1, and the next one over here, 2. And then again I have 1 chain, and into that chain I make a double crochet, and then I continue making a double crochet into each double crochet. And that's how I'm going to continue crocheting all the way across. And at the next corner, into the corner space, again I will work 2 double crochets, 3 chains and 2 double crochets, and then everything else is gonna be the same. So I'll see you at the end of this round. Here I am at the end of the round. I joined it with a slip stitch, and now I'm going to make 1 more round of double crochets, but I want to add a bit of a ruffled edge. So here is how I'm going to do it. I start with a beginning double crochet, then 1 chain, and into the same space where I joined I work 1 more double crochet. Now into the next double crochet I work a double crochet, 1 chain and a double crochet. And all the corner spaces are gonna be worked the same, so I make 2 double crochets, 1, 2, then 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and 2 more double crochets, 1, 2. And now into each double crochet I'm going to work a double crochet, 1 chain, and 1 more double crochet. And into the next double crochet again I make a double crochet, 1 chain, and 1 more double crochet. And that's how I'm gonna work all the way around, making a double crochet, 1 chain, and a double crochet into each double crochet. And that will give me a beautiful ruffled edge. And at the end of the round I join with a slip stitch to the first double crochet. Now I can fasten off and the blanket is ready.